much. The 4/0's probably going to be the largest hook size that I'm using a circle hook. And I'm just going to use, probably 18 inches of fluorocarbon leader. I use a line-to-line knot. I do not use a swivel. And I like to use split shot. And I use the size 2 split shot. And the reason I like split shot is it mimics a Carolina rig because I can pitch that weight on there and that bait's going to free float. But if I maybe am going to fish different depths or I've got different current to worry about, I can simply add or take away that split shot. So it's a very easy and also a very economical way for me to change the depth that I'm going to be fishing, because we know that we need to have that bait closer to the bottom. If I'm targeting redfish, which a lot of times this time of year, your redfish, your black drum, and your sheepshead are going to be your most popular fish right now because of those water temps being down. The trout get really finicky and might not be in those areas, but those drums and the sheepshead are all going to be hanging out, pretty much in those areas. And there's not a lot of bait in the water. So that blue crab is going to be awesome. So, 3 to 4/0 hook, 1/4 to a half crab. And again, and when I put my split shot on, I'm putting those probably like 8 inches above the hook, approximately. Okay. And the other way I'll fish it is sometimes I'll just take a weighted jig head, and I like a football style. So your bottom sweeper jigs are a good example where you tie that on and put your blue crab right on that, or even if you're fishing shrimp, same thing. Just use that because that's going to keep it right on the bottom. So those are probably 2 of my go-to ways for fishing the majority of my live bait.
Yeah, the football jig, I love using that football jig, especially for like a TRD or something. If I'm on a sand bottom or maybe just a shell bottom, I love dragging that football jig. So I think you're the first one that I've heard that uses a football jig for something like that. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
And I fish, if we want to talk about, I know we're kind of getting off of spring fishing, but I mean, my all-time favorite live bait to use is mud minnows. I mean, I always have mud minnows in the boat, and I love to fish a mud minnow on a football style jig. It's one of my favorite. I've caught thousands of redfish that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we got a ton of guys on. Heath, Howard, Steve. Glad you guys made it tonight. There was a little bit of a snafu. There was a pause button up at the top that was hit. So they actually joined a couple minutes late, but we are up, we are going. And so pulling back the curtain a little bit, that is some of the software snafus that I'm still trying to work out with the new software. But okay, so let's switch into, we went over the live bait. Let's get into artificials for spring. What do you got on the boat right now?
So I can tell you, there's going to be 3 soft plastics that are going to be with me not only in March, but all the time. And I did bring some out. So my all-time favorite, one of my all-time favorite baits. Well, actually, let me back up. My all-time favorite bait is the jerk shrimp by Z-Man.
Okay.
And this color is called fried chicken. And I always joke and say everything likes fried chicken, but this is hands down a bait that I can throw 12 months out of the year, and I'm a hook of redfish. I can tell you, it's my confidence go-to bait, and I like this bait. I don't know how well this is going to show up on here.
Oh yeah, perfect.
But we've got this. It's got some gold flecks in it. It's got a little chartreuse on it. This color right here, kind of in the body of it, is very close to another favorite color of mine called Slam Shady. So it's another reason I like this color. But I love chartreuse. I think in our waters here, because our waters, even though a lot of the time, we've got clearer water right now because the temps are down, but a lot of the areas I fish, which are going to be, Kiowa, Folly, Stono, that water's not always as clean as if you're going to be fishing up in the intercoastal up towards, Isle Palms, McClellanville. That water's definitely, the Wando it gets much clearer than it does typically in the areas that I'm fishing.
Okay.
This bait, I rig it on the eye strike. This is the Texas eye. I like the articulated head. My favorite actually eye color is actually the gold. I just didn't have an open pack, so that's the one. But I had. I'll rig this up 3/16 ounce, and the reason I like this is, these baits. Elastec, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, that are made by Z-Man, it's a buoyant product. So with this, and this is a weedless style jig head, but if those fish are super spooky, which often is the time this time of year, I can simply just let the characteristics of how this bait is made be the advantage for me. So I've got this articulated jig head that's going to let this sit on the bottom. And then because this Z-Man soft plastic is made of Elastec and it's buoyant, that bait is going to sit there and actually float up doing the work. So, I can throw a little scent on here. So something like Procure, which I'm a huge fan on, tip it. And if I've got a spooky school of fish, I know that I can throw this bait and I can almost, I can call it dead sticking, where, I'm not going to move that bait a whole lot if I know that school's spooky. If they're not spooky and I know I can work this bait, well then, I can hop this and twitch it and move it across the bottom. But I like a jerk style bait because yes, this looks more like a shrimp imitation right here, but these jerk style baits also imitate bait fish. So if there are smaller bait fish around, I like to call these twofers, is kind of how I describe a jerk bait in the soft plastic. So, if this was the only, rig I could fish, this would hands down be the rig that I would say, leave me with this, a pack of these on the boat. I'm gonna be okay.
Right. So that's the go-to. That one's always on. So if I jump on your boat tomorrow, there's a pack on there right now.
Yeah. So more than likely there's going to be a rod, ready and rigged with that. So, yeah.
Good. Good.
The next one's going to be, and I actually held it up first, but it's very similar, but it's going to be the jerk shad.
Yep.
And the slam shady again, similar color. You've got that kind of opaque, but you've got those gold flecks. And so, in our water, that bait profile, you can be in clean water or dirty water, and that color really does extremely well.
Yeah. I love the jerk shad. Matter of fact, I've got one tied on also. I've got it in the right stuff color. Yeah. So kind of that natural bait fish, a little brown. And so, love the jerk shad. Absolutely.
And then the third bait that I'm gonna have in the arsenal is gonna be, that's the salty Ned shrimp. And again, you can see I'm holding it up. Very similar colors here. I got some chartreuse. I've got a little kind of almost root beery gold color. And then this is rigged on the Eye Strike Texas Eye Finesse. So, that larger bait, I've got a 3/16 in the regular standard size, but this is going to be in the Finesse. And I like to use this as the 1/6 ounce. And again, I've got that gold eye, which I'm a huge fan of. And these small little baits do really, really well this time of year. Kind of any of these small profile baits, when we get into our winter to early spring, I'm going to reach for those well before I will those larger 3 plus inch baits. And I've got one other style jig head that is really a favorite of mine. So instead of using the Texas Eye Finesse, which I love this product. I mean, Dave and Ralph have done an amazing job with these products. The only downside to this Finesse style is this is a light wire hook, and you get a big old, 28 plus inch redfish, and you got that drag locked down, and you try to horse that fish to the boat, you're going to bend that hook out if you're not careful. So what I've had really good success with is this is a TT lure that Z-Man carries. It's their Nedlock EWG. So it's actually a weedless Ned rig style jig head, and I either fish it in the chartreuse or the black. But what I like is, I'm weedless, so I can pitch this around any kind of structure, and I'm less likely to get hung up. So that's why I'm almost always fishing some sort of weedless style jig head with my soft plastics.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, without a doubt. Matter of fact, I just popped up Heath's comment. He said that shrimp has caught a lot of reds this fall and winter. I
yeah.
mean, it is
Yeah.
just a solid
And
bait.
it is that little shrimp right there. I always tell people elephants eat peanuts.
Yeah.
So, those 30-plus-inch redfish that a lot of times you can find in those back creeks or around those docks, in the winter and this early, spring like this. I mean, they're big fish and they will key right into those small baits like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a matter of fact, the last time I was out, I hooked into a 31-inch red, and I caught him on this right here, the little slim swim on an 1/8 of an ounce, pearl white. And I said the exact same thing. I said, elephants do eat peanut. I mean, it was inhaled. It was in the top of his
Yeah.
lip there, and he was going at it. So.
Yeah.
There just wasn't a lot of bait in that creek. So he was not being, or she was not being picky at all. And
Yeah.
they're going to eat. So absolutely. So, so why the smaller bait profiles this time of the year and not a 4 or 5-inch?
Well, just because there's so little around, you're gonna, there are some small shrimp around. There's just the mainstay, which, once that water starts warming up and all of our baits really start rolling in, these fish there's not a lot there for them to choose from. And so I've, anything big tends to spook them. I find, and so these smaller baits, just because you got little, maybe some glass minnows around, some creek shrimp around, or they've got, a lot of times they're, feeding on worms. Actually, for the first time ever, and I don't usually get grossed out by stuff, but I caught a red a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, what is in his mouth? And of course, he just regurgitated everything, and out came this like nasty grody little like worm, and I'm like, oh my god. Well, I was like, well, that's why a TRD works, is because they're eating these nasty little gross worms.
Yeah.
He actually not only did he regurge that, but he regurged all that like kelpy like lettuce looking stuff that grows.
Oh yeah.
Year, and I'm like, you could probably put some out on a hook and throw it out this time of year. It was wild.
So. I didn't know they would eat that.
I mean, it was mind-boggling how much came out of this redfish. I was just
no kidding. So really, if there is nothing around to eat, they'll, I guess, resort to being a vegetarian, right? So get some salad and let it go.
Well, and the biggest thing is just you've got to slow down your presentations, until that water starts warming up. Those fish are just, they want to conserve that energy, and that metabolism just is not doing what it does when that water's warmer, and you just tend to have much more success. I mean, other baits that'll work are these little creature style baits are even great ones to throw. You got the little TRD craw or the little baby goats. Again, crab is around, so those are great baits to be fishing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually a really good transition. Do you find water temperature or weather patterns have the biggest impact in March, or is it a combination of both?
I mean, we all know water temp certainly plays a role. I mean, if you're going along and you find a little pocket of warmer water, that's probably going to be a spot you want to stop and fish. But when I'm trying to look at planning days, with, clients, I mean, there's a lot of times we don't get to pick, but, if I can go, if I know we've got maybe, we're either going to fish this day or this day this week, because I usually try to give my, clients a couple of days, just because for those who don't know me, I don't do this I'm not a 3 charter day kind of girl. I do this, and I try to just make trips successful for everybody and also be flexible. But I'm looking at, what direction the wind's going to be in, what's the barometric pressure going to be, days prior, days after, you'll try to look at all those factors. But yeah, if we got fronts coming through, it's definitely going to affect, how these fish are. And I think right now it's so drastic. We just had almost 80 degrees here yesterday.
Yeah.
And then today we had that wind honking all day long at the north, and then the temps started falling, and then we had that little storm come through. So, those fish, I guarantee you tomorrow are going to be like, what the heck? They're going to have lockjaw tomorrow just because it was such a drastic, swing. So.
Yep. So what do you think the biggest mistake you see anglers make when they're fishing, especially this time of the year, that winter to spring transition?
I think the hardest thing for people is slowing it down. If you're, when you're fishing artificial, slowing it down.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah,
definitely.
For folks maybe that are fishing, maybe some live baits and stuff, again, if you're fishing a dock, you need to try to pitch that thing as close up under that dock and just let it be. You can't work it back to the boat and think that fish is going to follow it out. Those fish are hunkered under there, hiding from the dolphin, and they're like, you almost got to get it in front of their face in order for them to come out and, take a bite of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So March and right around the beginning of April, what is the old saying? In like a lion, out like a lamb. Is that the old saying? So, wind, these next probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, wind is going to play a major factor when we go out.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for fishing in the wind?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is you've got to find areas that you can get protection from the wind. You're definitely, you can't fish a bank that's getting blown out. And sometimes it can be hard, depending on how wide of an area you are, even to fish the opposite bank. Because even though you might have protection on that bank, if it's big water, you just may not be able to fish that opposite side. So, I like still getting up into back creeks, where I've got some sort of structure, whether it be, docks, old laydowns, rock walls, things like that are going to offer me, if I've got maybe a rock wall and a, grass that I can kind of, or a dock to get behind, that'll slow things down. So that's what I like to try to do is just put myself, instead of fishing so much open water, I'm going to be in more protected areas.
And you're finding all those with your pre-trip planning. You're seeing where the wind is coming and you're like, okay, we want to be over here on this side, this north end or whatnot.
I'm going to try to, when I'm planning for whether it be a client-based trip or even a fun fishing trip, I'm finding, maybe A, B, C, D spots that I'm going to go try and hit where I'm hoping to be successful depending on what all those factors are going to be. There's days you're like, well, we're probably not red fishing today. We're just going to go sheepshead fishing because, I know I'm not going to be able to get in a spot. This is one thing I'll tell you about sheepshead is it can be honking and blowing 30. And if you can get over some structure, they don't usually care. You can catch sheepshead all day long.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have never fished for sheepshead as many times as I am out. I have never targeted them before, but that is one of the things that I want to get on this year. So, if I catch my first one, that's going to be my PB, even if it's 9 inches. So, I want to get on my first one, but give us I know that was one of the things that I think you said during your seminar at Hadrolls was some sheepshead fishing. So where do you target sheepshead during this time of the year? Because a lot of guys, if they're not catching reds or trout, they're targeting sheepshead.
Yeah. So any old docks that or rock walls are great. If maybe there's a sunk vessel or something, those are all great areas. And if you've got a rock wall with a really old crusty dock, man, that right there is a money spot. And those fish the bigger fish are starting to move in now. They move off, kind of February, and March to spawn. And then those big fish then start, or I won't say spawn, but they move off and then they come back in. So as March goes on and we get into April, those bigger sheepshead are going to be around. So you got bridges. If you can get up under a bridge, those are all great places to get them. I usually tell clients, I'm like, do y'all want to go try something that's going to aggravate the snot out of you, but is also going to addict you that you can't stop until you catch one? And they're like, yeah, let's go do it. And I tell them, you're going to feed 50 before you probably catch one. But once you learn that feel, you're going to be just set and addicted for life. And I mean, I love it. My good buddy that used to manage Hadrill's, the local tackle shop, he took me chunky years ago. It's probably been 10 years ago now. And I had never been. And the first time I caught one, I was like, okay, I could go do this all day long. I mean, it is just, it is super fun, but also super frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Guys, I know you're not this shy. If you have questions, get them in. Let's keep her busy. She is a wealth of knowledge. So throw them into the comments. Crystal, I do see your comment. If you hit me up on Instagram, I will answer your question about a place to stay here in Murrells Inlet when you come down. Be more than happy to do that, but hit me up on Instagram and I will definitely answer your question. So guys, we're coming up on that 30 minutes, but there is one thing that I want Captain Tanya to tell us about. And that is your trip to Louisiana. That it's probably been over a month now, but you joined a pretty exclusive club when you went down there and you caught well, I don't want to say it. So tell us about the trip to Louisiana.
So I actually hosted a women's trip down to an outfitter called Journey South Outfitters in Venice, Louisiana. So there were 6 women, and it was this was actually my third time going down there with these folks, and it was awesome just to take a group of ladies, and we were targeting big bull redfish using nothing but artificial baits. So we were using pretty good size Z-Man swim baits, the Hercules, and we were also throwing big chatter baits. And so we had a phenomenal 3 days of fishing. The weather was great. Between the 6 ladies, we landed 86 bull reds. And I had multiples over 40, and actually all 6 of the ladies all caught reds over 40 inches. So we all landed in the over 40-inch club. It was amazing. I mean, they have a fishery that if you ever go, you'll be spoiled. And it's something that I just love. And I actually love it so much. I'm taking my husband and some friends back in June. And then I'm actually hosting another women's trip at the end of this year in December. If anybody's interested in that, I'm still filling some of those slots, but it is phenomenal fishing. I mean, phenomenal.
So I'm assuming the picture you sent me for the thumbnail for this video was one of those big 40-inch bull red.
40+ inch, yes. Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah. You sent that, and I was like, oh, God, I got to get down there.
Now, I'm going to be honest, y'all. I am barely 5 feet tall, barely 100 pounds, so I can make any fish look big. But it was legitimately a large redfish.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have seen the thumbnail picture, but check that out. I mean, absolutely a monster fish. Congratulations. That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So what do you have coming up in the next few weeks? Do you have anything planned?
Certainly got some trips, and then we actually have on April 2nd, so the first Wednesday of every month, we do a seminar series called Women's Wednesdays at Hadrill's Point Tackle in West Ashley. And so I'm going to be doing a seminar on the 2nd, which is the first Wednesday in April. Going to be talking about some of what I talked about tonight, some spring tactics, but it's really cool because it's a series geared to get more lady anglers just involved. And so, not that we don't like you fellas, but it's a way to just, allow ladies to get together and, maybe not have to feel that pressure, and being shy about asking a question maybe they don't know the answer to. So, so I've got that coming up, and, running some trips, and that's kind of where I'll be. So, as the weather gets warmer, of course, more and more folks want to go out. So
yeah. Well, that's absolutely fantastic. And again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Guys, if you're down in Charleston and you guys want to get on some fish, go see Captain Tanya. I'm going to throw this back up here again, but go ahead and just tell everybody how they can reach you. I've got it up on a banner, but go ahead and tell everybody how to reach you.
Yeah, so I do have a website that I did myself, so forgive me. It's probably not the best in the world, but you can check me out at ReelChicaCharters.com. Probably the best way to communicate to me is text. So he's got my number up there, and that's probably just the easiest way for me to be able to get back and forth with you. I do have email available as well. That's on the website, or you can actually send me a message through the website, but typically texting me is going to be the best way, because that way I'll have your number and then we could just be back and forth. I provide everything. Again, love to get lady anglers out. So I love to do couples, husbands and wives, dads and daughters, two gals that are, best friends. Those are the things that I am super passionate about, because my goal and the whole reason that I am a charter captain is I want to see more lady anglers out on the water. And that's why I do this.
Yeah. And that's absolutely fantastic. And guys, go over and follow her on Instagram at ReelChica. The pictures that she's posted, you posted a bunch of pictures from a trip with you and David Flad, where you guys were on some redfish. So guys, go and check those out. She's posting those catches all the time. And, and I'm just jealous, because I wish I was a little bit closer to Charleston instead of that 2-hour drive down, or I'd be down there all the time. But, Murrells Inlet, I love the fishery. I mean, but, Charleston is just absolutely gorgeous place to be, even when you're not catching fish. Getting back up into the backwaters in those kayaks, it's just a beautiful area.
It truly is.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Thanks again. I will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, and we'll do this all again. Hopefully all the little snafus are all worked out. You get a little rusty when you're not on, after a couple of weeks. You kind of forget the little nuances of some things. But Captain Tanya, thank you so much again. And guys, I will see you all next week.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.